I'm Comet the Duck. Welcome to video 11 on walking with him. It's called The Advent of the Nitro Type Tournament. In this story, God leads me on an epic adventure, a race right through the land of the dreaded bots. There was much that I didn't understand, but when he called, I followed. This story started when the new Nitro Type Tournament was introduced. It was huge. Nitro Type has millions of players in over 100 countries. The tournament begins with 810 of the best racers. 270 make it to the quarterfinals, 90 to the semifinals, and only 30 to the finals. I imagined what it would be like to race there. At first, I was excited. Then I realized that the tournament would be filled with bots. Not every botter is a bad person, but their intentions don't change the harm that botting causes. Bots run hundreds of races and don't grow tired. But honest racers, we grow tired. We put in days of work, and at the last minute, with the click of a single button, a botter can make that effort and struggle meaningless. When I saw that, familiar voices from childhood echoed in my mind. You can't win even if you try. We decide who wins, and it's not you. I shrank back. I didn't want to be in a system like that ever again. So I decided to avoid the tournament. For months, I raced less to make sure I stayed out of that level of competition. I stayed small, and that was a kind of harm too. Week 1, where hope begins. Instead of the tournament, I had my fun with competitions for my team. One week, I had so much fun racing with them that I got carried away. Oh, how we laughed. It was exhilarating. I was soaring. I raced 1,000 races. Then I looked at the leaderboard and froze. Oh no, too many races. I had landed in the tournament. I cringed. I should have stayed small. I should have stayed safe. Still, I felt a spark of rebellion. What if I didn't want to stay small? I needed advice. God, what should I do? You decide, he said. So I did my own math. I weighed my own strength and my many weaknesses against the unlimited strength available to botters. The answer was obvious. I will not race. There's no point. Then God frowned. That wasn't like him. He asked me to choose, and then he didn't like my answer? Something felt off between us. Yet in that frown, I felt hope. His hope reaching out to me. God, I don't understand, I told him. Then I had a bright idea. If he didn't like my answer, I could change it. God, if it pleases you, I choose to race. My new choice seemed to open a door. I felt his joy and his eagerness. He was inviting me into an adventure. He had a story he wanted to tell, and to tell that story, he needed me to race. That week, I raced for 32 hours. When I checked the leaderboard, I saw I'd done 1,250 races. I passed to the next level of the tournament, the quarterfinals. I looked at God. He seemed quietly pleased. I didn't understand what story he was telling, but suddenly it felt bigger than I'd ever imagined. Week 2, peace at the wheel. I entered the second hall of the tournament with great curiosity. Time for sightseeing. I peered at my fellow racers with a suspicious eye. Was it true that many were the dreaded bots? I pulled out my notebook. I did some investigating. I began to tally. Bot, Bot, maybe human, likely bot. I couldn't always tell, but my best guess, at least half the racers were bots. It was just as I had heard. This hall was indeed a botter's lair. I listened closely to God's directions. Each morning I chose a number of races with him. Then I did my best to reach that number by evening. We settled into a rhythm. In this story, I drove the car. I left it to God to figure out where we were going. How peaceful to race without worrying about the destination. In my mind, my odds of success as an honest racer in this hall were easy to calculate. None. Therefore, I figured that his adventure, whatever it was, would at some point include leaving the tournament. I resolved to pay close attention and to follow his call no matter when it came, even if it came when I was a foot from the finish line. Near the end of the week, I did peek at the leaderboard. First and second place were, of course, bots. My points were far lower, with several others close enough to pass me. Then in the last hours, my dog got sick and I couldn't race. But when I finally got back to see the leaderboard, it said that I had finished in 4th place. The semifinals! How had God found a path right through the middle of the botting grounds? I didn't ask him. It was enough to know that I could race and that he could find a path. I looked at God in awe that he could see a path where I saw absolutely nothing except botters and their bots. God was telling me a story and letting me play a role in what he was telling. How epic to be in the middle of a story told by God. I took notes. Week 3, Love in the Middle. I entered the 3rd hall of the tournament feeling small. Only the strongest botters were here, with perhaps a few of the most talented, honest racers. I looked at God, but he wasn't fazed by that company. He just said, "Follow me." Real life hit hard. Some days I raced furiously. Others, I barely touched the keyboard. One day I pushed too hard, 650 races. I grew tired. Then errands, meetings, and care for my team kept me busy. Even chats with friends pulled me away from the racing. 2 days left. I was too low on the list. There was no way I was going to make the finals. I dragged myself to the racetrack and I did my best, but I was burned out. In 30 minutes, I did 4 races. Trying to force myself was not working. Just when I was ready to log off and give up, some friends appeared and asked me to race with them. I didn't want to be rude by ignoring the invitation, so I did some friends races with them. Then they left and other friends invited me, and then still others. Politeness kept me racing late into the evening, but exhaustion finally won, and I reached for the key that says I've got to go. And right then, a dear friend appeared. I hadn't seen him in months. I knew God's hand was in this timing. I raced for another hour. And when this friend left, something had changed. I was energized. I raced for 3 more hours. When the semifinals ended, I saw the numbers. 55 hours of racing this week and 2,227 races. 6th place. Good enough to get into the finals. God's story had gotten even larger this week, including interference by real life and a rescue by online friends. I looked at God in awe. 3 impossible tournament halls and each time God found a way for us to get through? I thank God for bringing me to the entrance of the final tournament. There will be another victory, God said. My mind couldn't grasp his words. I was so sure that placing in the finals was impossible that I looked for another meaning. I figured God had to be talking about a smaller victory. I asked him, God, what story are you telling? Where will this victory be? He heard me, but he didn't answer. I knew he would in his own time. Week 4, the sound of joy. I hesitated before walking into that last and greatest hall. Some suggested that waiting several days before entering would make things easier. I was tempted, but I know that God often prefers the harder part. So I asked him if he had a preference. This time he had a clear answer. I do. Don't wait. Begin now. I still didn't understand what story God was telling, but I could feel the sheer magnitude of it. Since it was his story, I wanted to make a memorable entrance to honor him in this last and greatest hall. I put on praise by elevation worship. Then I raced that first race. I was bouncing in my bungee chair to the rhythm of the song, singing at the top of my lungs, and my fingers flew across the keys. I was overcome with an unreasonable amount of joy. I asked again, God, what story are you telling? He didn't answer, so I laughed and sung and typed and bounced late into the night. In the morning, I did it all again. It was so much fun. 16 of the first 24 hours were spent racing, and I wasn't getting tired because my joy never stopped. That evening, I glanced at the leaderboard and noticed something odd. The racer behind me had 666 races. That number caught my eye. Surely it would change when the chart refreshed. It didn't. Who would choose to remain here on such a number? I kept racing, watching the number. When I reached 1,000 races in this hall and still saw that 666, I knew it was a message from God. I knew it wasn't about that particular racer. God was using this racer to answer my question about his story. He was saying with numbers, this is a story about me, you, and the beast. And I couldn't help but notice that he and I were in first place and well ahead of the beast. I took a picture of the numbers just to remember. I didn't expect to stay in first place for long. I figured the others would pass me soon. Late that same evening, after 4 years of playing Nitro Type, I reached my 200,000th race. There was no time for a ceremony. I found a few friends, called on God, and raced. Of course I took a picture of the nice number. Then I checked the image. Lifetime races, 200,000. Season level, 200. But those are two totally different systems, two totally different counts. There is no way the numbers should have lined up. But here they were. I grinned. Only God could have arranged that. He was letting me know that he was there celebrating with me. I was deeply touched by that. I turned back to racing in laughter and in wonder. The next day, when I was writing in my journal in the morning, God spoke casually with a twinkle in his eyes. You're going to win, you know. He laughed as he said it, as if he knew quite well that I wouldn't yet understand. And he was right, because immediately my mind fought back. It said, "The tournament's too big, God. You must mean a different win in a different part of my life." Because of my doubts, I was afraid to write his words down, so I didn't. The next day I found a bit more courage and a bit more trust, but not very much more. So I did write his words in my journal, but I wrote them in a pale gray font, barely visible. I felt him laugh again gently as I returned to my racing, kind of like he knew something I didn't. But hey, he was God. Of course he knew things I didn't, many of them. I was entering the final 2 days of the tournament. Was I tired? I ignored my body. There was no time for that. This was his story, and I wanted to finish in the top 15. Those that did got a special Nitro Type car, and, well, I could call that a win. I did the math. Maybe. The racers behind me were still too close. I couldn't be sure. We were racing for points, and faster racers earn more points for each race. I'm not fast. The math said that many could still pass me. For a moment, the old voice returned. Of course you can't win. I'd already done 2,852 races in 77 hours of racing this week. How much more could my body do? I almost listened to that voice. Then I remembered I wasn't racing against the others. I was just following God. It was for him to figure out where the road went. I relaxed. Then I grinned. Time to race strategically. I raced till 3 a.m. and then I slept for 7 hours. A last long sleep. That was part of my plan, because the next night I wasn't going to sleep. I raced through the day, 8 solid hours of typing. In the evening, I had a class. Real life was intruding again. 3 hours without racing. And then my night started. It was far harder than I thought. I raced, and they raced. But because they were faster, they earned more points each race. So the more I raced, the more I was losing ground. It was discouraging. And since I was so tired, the clock moved very slowly. It was endless. It wasn't till 2 a.m. that their racing slowed, and I began to gain ground again. Then there was only one racer left. Soon it became clear he too planned to race all night. He was so close. I battled with him through the dark hours. His rhythm, his pauses. It was clear he was another honest racer. It was a joy to race against him. When dawn came, I had raced for 11 hours straight, and that racer and I had a solid lead over the rest of the pack. Then God spoke. Stop and sleep. I protested. God, I'm in front by almost nothing. If I stop, that racer will pass me. I'd rather race till I drop. Then I remembered my fantasy 2 weeks ago. I had told myself that I'd stop racing at his call, even within a foot of the finish line. This was his story, and I would follow him, even if he called me away from the race. To sleep, how unglamorous. How long? I asked. Till I wake you up, he smiled. I slept for nearly 2 hours. When I woke, the racer behind me was closer, but had not passed. He must have rested too. There's no way I could have known that he'd do that, but God clearly had. I made another cup of tea, and then the chase started again. He raced, and so did I. He was so close, he was going to pass me. And then he stopped racing. He was gone for several hours. I felt bad for him. I bet he had a mandatory meeting or class or something. But that gave me a chance to pull ahead again. Late that afternoon, with about 3 hours to go, I did a bit of math. As long as I kept racing without stopping, the others couldn't catch me. Even with the numbers in front of me, it felt unreal. Joy was growing inside of me, not joy for the win. Joy because first place was a worthy ending for God's story. During the last 20 minutes, I could see the win was assured. I stopped racing, took a few screenshots, and sat with God watching the clock wind down. In the 7 days of this final section of the tournament, I completed 98 hours of racing and 4,653 races. First place. My mind was too tired to understand his story, but I knew it was truly breathtaking. 10 months later, and I'm seeing again the sheer scale of the story God told. Millions of Nitro Type racers, 810 of the best in the first week of the tournament. Botters everywhere! And then a first place win? That win was only the surface of the story. It wasn't the message. I remembered the start. God told me to choose, and I did the math and realized that winning was impossible, so I said no. Then God frowned. And now I understood. That frown said, "Why are you doing the math without me in it?" But at that time, I didn't understand. And because God is God, he didn't explain in words. He invited me right into a story. The adventure lasted 4 weeks. In those 4 weeks, I raced for 245 hours. I did nearly 10,000 races towards a goal that I thought was utterly impossible. God did not remove the bots that I feared. He led me right through their lair. He didn't take me away from the world as it is. He walked with me right through it. He told me an absolutely glorious, joyful, extravagant story, complete with harm and danger and all the real parts that make a story be truly exciting. And then he gave that story an epic ending. And he did all that just to say, when you do the math, remember I'm with you and part of the equation. Listeners, thank you for listening to this story. I really appreciate your presence on this channel.